Hello YouTubers. Sausages on sticks? Sounds like a crazy idea for painting trees, but it's actually quite a useful thought process that you go through. So remember the 70s, where the height of sophistication was to take cocktail sticks and stack things on them, lumps of cheese, pickled onions, bits of pineapple, party sausages with bits of pineapple, some other embellishment. And when I was looking at some of the marks that I made, let's have a look at the piece of paper, this kind of over mark, it reminded me of a sausage. So this shape looked a bit sausage-like. Now, for the purposes of this video, I'm going to refer to things as sort of over sausages and under sausages. So this is an over sausage, this is an under sausage. Why? This bends over, this bends under, okay? So this is an over sausage with trunks and branches that hold it up. A bit like, I was thinking of kind of the cocktail stick would hold the sausage up, but in replacement of the cocktail stick, we have the trunks and branches. So obviously, the more sophisticated you can paint the trunks and branches, the better the basic sausage shape looks. Now, if you want to learn a lot about that and tune that whole methodology of how you create more clever looking, more sophisticated and more convincing trunks and branches, then I would strongly suggest that you visit my studio site. On there, I have a whole series about painting trees, and it starts with looking at that particular aspect of tree painting, the tuning of how you paint trunks and branches. And that normally makes a big difference as to how people can forward the look of their tree painting, because a lot of the time it is about how well that looks, how convincing the trunks and branches are in holding up whatever shapes that you make. If you want to know what the studio site looks like, it looks like this. So when you visit it, you'll need to join it. That'll let you look at a load of free stuff, and then if you want to subscribe, then you follow the instructions on there. Anyway, back to this sausage routine. So let's look back again at the sausage shape. This is just one sausage, but what about we made it more than one sausage? We have 1, 2, 3 sausages, 7 sausages, 5 sausages. The under sausage or the over sausage, they basically can make some reasonably convincing tree forms. So these I've just drawn with felt tips to illustrate it, and here I have done some versions with steadily from 3, slightly leaning over to the left, more centralized, and then adding a greater number of the curves. Again, the trunks and branches making it look more convincing. Or we could add even more sausages, so that you're now adding bigger sausages, smaller sausage shapes, bunching them up. When you've got a shape, let's say you've tried doing a few of these overcurved sausages, and in a minute I'll show you how to do that with paint. When you get to a point you think, you know, that doesn't look bad, that tree I've just done doesn't look bad, the thing to do then is repeat it. Here I've done this tree 4 different times, right? 4 times, each one slightly different. The point of this was to illustrate to you that once you've got a basic model, you could play with maybe spacing things apart, making more small stuff, making things more bunched. The variation is the way that you make them look more sophisticated. Take a sidestep and, you know, pick up a book by some artist you like, some watercolor painter that you admire, and see whether they paint the same sort of tree a number of times. Have they got like a model for painting the tree that they then repeat, right? Most people do. I do. I'll hold my hand up. I do that because it's logical. You get pretty good at something. Why step away from it and then ignore it? You don't. You repeat it. It's like somebody who plays certain phrases, say in music, and they like repeating and playing with that phrase and fiddling with it until it just turns out extra bit tuned and different and personalized to them. That's what it's about. Paint things again and again until you feel confident. You feel that you're getting somewhere with it. Okay. Let's paint. So let's pick up a brush. I'm picking up not a huge brush. This is about size 6, sable, and I'll mix some black paint. Oh yes, the dreaded black, work of the devil, you know, some abomination, whatever other things people seem to put around black paint. I think that's mainly because people make a lot of mistakes when they first start. They think of black and white mixed together, and that doesn't turn out great. And then they use black, and it kind of deadens the colour. So they basically think, never want to touch that again. It's horrible, right? Actually, it does have some uses, and it's really good for illustrating things boldly for you on a piece of paper. It's quite cheap, and also it does have interesting dulling effects in paint. So yeah, to begin with, I wouldn't use it. Later on, it's interesting. Maybe that's another video for another time. Okay, back to the sausages. So let's do our basic arc. Notice how I'm making this quite wet. Now this is just cartridge paper. This isn't watercolour paper. I hardly see the point in using expensive paper to just make shapes on a paper. Shapes on the paper. You don't need to either. Just find something to paint on that will, you know, not be too sort of sucking and absorbent when you paint on top of it. A reasonable quality drawing paper will do that. You don't need watercolour paper to do this at first. This is just about painting shapes. And then I'm going to come up, and I'm going to go first of all at a reasonable distance away and then lead up to it. Right, now that looks more like the Italianate tree, the taller, the more elegant tree. Now let's crunch it a bit and make it look like a lower tree. So we take the arc, and we do the arc. All right, try to only do that with 1 or 2 movements if you can, and then we'll start closer, and then we'll go up to it. You see how it looks immediately either further away or more crunched. Let's do it again, and this time I'm going to have more branches spread out. This is why it's a good idea to do the same thing a number of times, exploring what it's like if you just change the way that you paint it a bit. They look like 3 different sorts of tree. This is now looking like a slightly different tree to this. It's not, you know, this is a taller tree. This is far shorter, more heavy with foliage. You see what I mean? Do the same thing, change it a bit, make it taller, make it shorter, make it wider, you know, make it more slightly higher. We could take that curve and make it a higher curve. So what's it like if the curve is higher? Right, and then we go and maybe make the marks that lead into it. It will look like a slightly different tree because the form of it is different. Okay? So, repeat, 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 repeat. And find new little things about it. So even though it's just one shape, you can probably do a lot of things with it. But let's move on to 2, okay? Let's go crazy. Right, so now we're going to do an arc, and then we're going to do another arc. In fact, let's do them wider. Let's make them bigger. Why am I being so mean? Right, and then let's come up and let's just do, for example, there's another thing. You might find that that brush is a bit heavy, a bit large for you. Let's shift, and now we're going a smaller brush. This is probably about size 2, and then from that I can lead out and add all sorts of little marks from that, probably quite much more easily. I'm not having to be as careful with the way that I'm painting it, and that will look like a slightly different form of tree. But the arc is probably best made with the wider one. So now, hey, let's go mad. Let's go for 3. And again, well, let's try with a little brush, see if that works. That will hold quite a lot of paint. Let's go through, and then we'll add the various things from it. Let's track up through that. Let's track up through this, making it look like it builds, and going to this. Obviously, the more you add, the more canopies, shall we say, that you add, the more time it will take to paint. Now, if we took the arc shape and then we added more of them and changed the size, which haven't, let's see what that looks like in paint. So let's pick up the larger brush again, and this time what I might do is do it so that I'm changing the size, so that the over curved sausage is changing. Maybe I add, sometimes they touch one another, sometimes they may float outside a shape or actually be bunched in a group, but it's the same arcing sort of sausage shape. Now let's come in with the smaller brush, which probably makes it easier, and I'm just going to track through and add a whole load of branches that make this look like it all interconnects somehow before your paint dries. Make that slightly wider there, and it looks like an incredibly different tree to our Italianate trees, but it's the same idea. It's just a bunch of sausages, okay? Just a bunch of over sausages. Should we do an under sausage tree? Why not? Pick up the brush again. Let's go for this one. And let's do a bunch of under sausage shapes. We'll do several of them. And let's come through there. You see that the under sausage shape might work very well for something that looks more like a pine tree or some form of spruce or whatever. Sausages, marvelous. So that's what you want to do. Sausages on sticks, right? Let's have a look again at that. Not bad for sausages, really. Quite a nice little neat idea. And again, you know, back to the studio thing, you know, it really is about taking an idea and then developing it and showing how things can be tuned, adapted, shaped, changed, rethought through. That is a lot of the time about how you take people in lessons from a basic principle of something and then keep working it, which is exactly what I've just done here. You know, I'm taking that shape and then I've changed it and changed it. So if you've enjoyed this and learned something, which is the key bit, then why not subscribe to my channel, and then when I do a new video you can pick up a new gem of information, hopefully that's something that you can use in your watercolor painting to take your work further. And I really hope you've enjoyed this. I've enjoyed doing it, so I hopefully will see you again soon. Bye.